Hello and welcome to the CCDA podcast. My name is Sylvia Kamande. I co-lead the Women of Color Affinity Network for CCDA, and I'll be your host today. And today I'm joined with the lovely Lisa Sharon Harper. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Really great to see you and to be in conversation today.
Yes, I'm excited for our conversation too. Lisa, I've got the pleasure of speaking to you on different occasions, but for our listeners who've not met you yet, could you really share a little about who you are, the work that you do with Freedom Road, with the work with racial healing and justice, and just the work you've been doing over the years?
Absolutely. Well, I came to know CCDA way back in the day. I think it was only a few years old, 1991. I was a student at the Brazil Institute for Urban Ministry in Los Angeles when that church and the church that it was connected to and the institute actually hosted the regional gathering of Los Angeles CCDA. It was awesome. It was incredible. And it was my first time to actually meet Dr. John Perkins face to face. I had been introduced to his work through the Here's Life Inner City summer missions program with Campus Crusade back during my college years. And we read, With Justice for All and Let Justice Roll Down. And both of those books were just critical, central to my understanding of what it meant to follow Jesus back then. But meeting him face to face was something different. And also meeting the CCDA community was something different because I was beginning to see how this all works out in real time. And the church that I was going to, LA First Church of the Nazarene, it ended up being like a really seminal church for the restoration, the bringing back of Los Angeles after the LA uprising in 1992, in large part because of its commitment to those three R's. Relocation, redistribution, and reconciliation. And so because of its commitment, I got to be a part of the racial healing of Los Angeles. Since then, I joined staff with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, where I was on staff with them for about 10 years, and took a pilgrimage while I was on staff with them that changed my life. We retraced the Cherokee Trail of Tears for the first 2 weeks of our pilgrimage. And the second 2 weeks, we retraced the African experience in America from slavery through civil rights. And the whole time we were asking, what is the gospel? Like, what is the good news of Jesus? And I have to say, I was rocked when I realized that my understanding of the good news had nothing to say. It just had nothing to say to the most evil things that had happened on American soil, both stories of which have intersection with my own family's story. So that left me pretty rocked at the end of that summer, really went into a year of depression, and came out of that year doing deep investigation of the biblical concept of shalom. And it's that concept that has shaped my work ever since then. I left InterVarsity and got my master's degree in human rights. I started with a company of people, built an organization called New York Faith and Justice, built a lot on the work that I did in InterVarsity, leveraging the community of InterVarsity staff and alumni in New York City in order to unite the church, in order to end poverty in New York City. We had high aspirations. What can I say? I was in my 30s, right? So, and there was a way that the work, the vision of shalom powered work that was aiming for a just world, not only because of some social, secular thing, but because that's the vision of God. God wants at the heart of who we are and what we do for us to be in radically good relationship with all things and all peoples, and with ourselves and with the systems that govern us. So that really shaped my work in those early 2000s. And I ended up going to Sojourners and working with them for 6 years. And now I run for Freedom Road, which is a consulting and communications group, and really education. We help the church to understand what justice is and to do justice more justly. So we do that through pilgrimages because that was one of the big ways that it impacted me. We also do that through the designing and creation of convenings and trainings and consulting and coaching. So all of the things. Um, I know that we are going to be talking today about one of our forums that we're putting together called The Clearing. And I'm
Yes.
looking forward to talking with you about that.
Yes. Oh, Lisa, I love that. I can just see the threads of how every experience you've had over your life has just been this catalyst for like the next thing and the next thing, and the threads of your own personal story and racial justice and healing has also just led to like where you are right now. And like we talk about like the clearing. So let's go back to the beginning of 2020 of 25
Yes.
after the election when you began to notice like a shift among Black women leaders, and at what point did you notice there was something shifting, and what led you into like something deeper?
Well, I mean, look, the shift really started in my mind with me. I mean, in my experience, I experienced the shift, and Freedom Road experienced the shift. In January of 2025, we got phone calls from people who had been saying they wanted to work with us that suddenly said, we don't have any money anymore. Like
Mm,
their funding dried up, so they couldn't work with us anymore. Um, we had a contract, the contract we were depending on for our income for 2025 went poof.
yeah.
In mid 2024, we began to see the inklings of that. Another contract that was also supposed to be sustaining us in 2025 went poof. And again, it was because, at the bottom line, it was because funders and also some new leaders who had just come in to leadership in these organizations we were working with no longer had a vision for racial justice and racial equity. In fact, anything having to do with what they called DEI, people were running from. And so as a result, our work went poof. Now, it turns out that industry was an industry led in large part by Black women. And so that industry, the DEI industry, in other words, the people who were leading the church and the world into better, more just relationships with each other, suddenly were cut off, pushed out of the American economy. And then, along with that, within the government, within the federal government, in July of last year, 1 year ago, a report came out on fortune.com that revealed that 300 Black women had been pushed out of the American economy just in the first 4 months of last year, from between January and April, maybe going into May of last year. And so there was just a real sense of, whoa, what is happening here? And will this be able to pick up? I've never experienced anything like it before. And on top of that, you also had not only us who were now pushed out of the economy, but there were hundreds of thousands of other people who were pushed out. So now you have a glut of people trying to get jobs, and there's not enough jobs. And not only are there not enough jobs, but jobs are being cut because of Doge and all the things. So it was a true crisis. By the end of the year, Katika Roy, the woman who wrote the original report in July of 2025 that revealed 300,000, she updated her numbers. And her numbers in by November of 2025 said that almost 700,000 Black women had been pushed out, blocked out of the American economy. Now, I had her on my podcast, and she explained, she kind of dug into those numbers, and she explained that that is a dire situation for the Black community. We're not talking about people who have experienced or were like intergenerational poverty, who actually knew how to work the systems, who understood like how to get resources because they knew the culture of like the war against poverty and all of the systems and structures that were put up in order to protect people from falling into poverty. No, we're not talking about those folks. We're talking about folks who were making six figures, people who were making the high five figures or six figures. They were solidly middle class, solidly upper middle class in many cases, now completely pushed out of work. And mind you, Black women are the most educated per capita people group in America. There are more PhDs per capita among Black women than in any other people group in the United States of America. And yet, this is the group that was pushed out of businesses and all of the sectors. So there was, as Katika Roy put it, there was an absolute restructuring of access that happened in 2025. And I experienced that as a push out of our contracts. But toward the end of the year, especially after reading that first article, I started asking my friends. I started, calling friends and saying, "What's your experience been? What's your experience been?" And one by one, every single Black woman I knew, every last one of them was in financial crisis. The last woman that just made such a big impression on me as a new friend, somebody I just met. I asked her, how's the year been for you? And she rolled her eyes and she said, "Girl, I've actually stopped looking at my credit report." I said, "Oh my goodness, like it's bad when
Yeah.
you stop looking." And I have to say, I'm obsessed with my credit. I mean, my credit means a lot to me. I've fought for my credit over the years. And I knew what she was talking about. I didn't stop looking at it, but I was like in dread because you could see it. You could see it plummeting because you just had no resources,
Yeah.
and there was nowhere to turn. And so, thankfully, God is God. And what I found out is that even without resources, you still live day to day. The next day still comes, the sun still rises, and there are widows in Zarephath. I mean, in the same way that Elijah fed the widows in Zarephath, God sent people to feed me over the course of that year. My mom, thank God for my mom. She was able to sustain, she lives with me actually. I moved her in with me during COVID. So she was able to sustain us over the course of the year. And then God really intervened. And let me share with you how he intervened. In December of 2025, a beloved auntie who was struggling for years with Alzheimer's and other ailments, she finally passed into her glory. And as her final act, she had requested that I come and I speak at her funeral. And so I spoke, and at the repast, I ended up sitting with cousins I never knew, I'd never met before. And we ended up talking about the horrible economic year that everybody had, especially the Black women around the table. And one of those cousins is a man, and he's a financial planner. And so he starts talking to us about like the ways we should be thinking about money in this era, the Trump era, the era where almost all of the people who are in government are all major business people. And he said all of their personal credit is horrific because business people tap all of their personal resources in order to build their businesses. So they don't really live off of their personal credit, they live off of their business credit. And I was like, oh my gosh. So he starts giving me all this wisdom. I said, "Can you be my financial planner?" No joke. And I've been literally been thinking, God, I need a financial planner. Like I need somebody with money wisdom to come in and intervene. And then here he is at my
God
auntie's
answered.
repast. I mean, like my auntie, like literally put us, he's like, "You have a resource you didn't know that you had." So he's like, "Sure, I'll be your financial planner." So we literally met every week, once a week in December, and then also going into January. And he's still my financial planner to this day.
Wow.
And he's going to be for in time immemorial. But toward the end of December, I was just amazed at the turnaround that began to happen for me. And I mean, truly quick, right? Like he took the pulse. He knew what was going on in every aspect of my financial life. And then he said, "This is our plan." And so by the first week of January, I entered 2026 with a plan and have been working that plan ever since. And God also intervened. And again, prayer works. I was praying hard, and literally, the Lord, in some ways, dropped a job into my lap, and it wasn't just any job; it was literally perfect for me. It was only temporary, and so I'm still hustling. I'm still out there, getting that next contract. But 2026 is a different year. I think in many ways, the people who were afraid to invest in racial justice now understand where the logics of white supremacy get us. They do not help anyone, and so people are now beginning to reinvest in understanding this and understanding how we got to 2025. Um, and in addition, the place that God gave me, just the grace of God, it was actually a role of I filled in for a friend who was on parental leave, and She had a baby, yay. And the role that I filled in was the director of policy and organizing for her organization. And it was perfect. It was just, I just thrived. And one of the things that losing work does to anyone is suddenly you don't know what your purpose is. And I literally said to God halfway through the year, God, who am I now? What is my role? What is my purpose here? I can't do what I felt like you were calling me to do through Freedom Road. What am I supposed to be doing? I literally started looking for other jobs. I mean, literally putting out the resume to all kinds of jobs, and of course, never getting a bite back because there's a million people going after each of those jobs. And so, what I found through this job that the Lord gave me for this
Hmm.
4 month stretch is
Yeah.
I still got it.
You still got it.
Still got it. I mean, it was like so. It was so the Lord. It was so God. Yes, I still got it, and what I have is still necessary for this world. And guess what? Black women still got it, and what we have is still necessary for this country. And so I and my financial planner, Brian Walls, my cousin, we decided let's take this on the road. Let's actually like bless Black women through this. So we started this thing called the Clearing, and the Clearing, of course, is inspired by Baby Suggs Holy, Toni Morrison's book. Beloved, where Baby Six Holy calls the community to the clearing at a point in the book. And in the clearing, Baby Six Holy, who is like she represents like the ancestors. She brings the people to the clearing and she says, "You got to love yourself because ain't nobody else gonna love you. They would rather see your neck stretched, so you have to love your neck. You've got to love your face. You've got to love your liver because if you don't love you radically, nobody's gonna love you." There's not a guarantee that anybody else is going to love you in this here world. And so it's a call to radical um, self-love and also a radical centering of our own stories, the stories of Black women, and I would add now brown women, because of the trauma that has been laid on the shoulders of brown women because
Yeah.
of the exorbitant and brutally violent um, pogrom against immigrants in the United States right now. Um, Brown women's economies have actually begun to dry up as well,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
there's a sense of not knowing if they belong. So the clearing is specifically a place for women of color to come and to be filled back up with self-love and the resources that you need in order to hold the weight of what we are carrying in this world today. And lest we think that things are getting better and they will continue to get better, please remember that the big, beautiful bill doesn't really take effect until after the midterms. And that big, beautiful bill will be completely slashing Medicare, cutting Social Security, slashing SNAP. It will be taking out almost completely the education department, if it hasn't already started. There are huge cuts that are coming to our communities as a result of, honestly, as a result of the legislation that's being passed over the past year, as a result of 2025, Project 2025. And we have a respite right now, but the reality, many do, others don't. But the reality is that almost everybody is going to be suffering in 2027. And climate change is also exacerbating that, where you're going to have climate disasters with very, very little help from the federal government, which is where we have traditionally looked for help. So, friends, I'm saying all over the place, come to the clearing. Come to the clearing. And I'm so excited that CCDA has decided to partner with us to launch one of our pilots. We have two pilots that are going to be happening in 2026. One of them is in Richmond at CCDA. It's the pre-conference for CCDA, taking place on October 7th of this year. And CCDA, of course, goes through, I believe, through the 9th, is it or the 11th
The
of this
10th.
year? The 10th.
The
Thank
10th,
you.
yes.
So it goes through the 10th. I'll be there the whole time. But the clearing is happening on the
October 7th, yes.
October 7th. And the other one is going to be in Philadelphia on September 9th. So on September 9th, come to Philadelphia for the clearing here. You can find out more information about all of these things on my Substack. Also, CCDA. If you're with CCDA, CCDA will be sending out emails and you'll have a direct link to sign up. And if you are not a Black or Brown woman and you want to support this because you have Black and Brown women in your life who you want to make sure get the information, you're absolutely welcome to donate their their registration cost, or donate to help other women who are struggling or in crisis to be able to come. So we made the cost as accessible as possible. It's below $100, and for those who are struggling, it's just $57. But some people can't even afford that. So if you could help by donating to help allay those costs, that'd be great. But thank you so much for your partnership, CCDA. I'm so looking forward to being with you all in Richmond this year.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa, for just expanding on what the clearing is and just seeing the elements of how your personal story again has led you to say yes to God again into something that to lead other women into, but also started with your yes and your yes of obedience, and then God expanding to like your cousin at a table being like, I'm a financial planner. It
Yes,
all began with like your yes, and then to that element of him being like, come, I'll teach you, and then you go teach others, which is really incarnational ministry, what Jesus did. He taught, and then he led others to go teach, and
that's
then invited others into the fold and being like, let's not gatekeep, let's invite others into this space as well.
that's
And
right.
I love that. And I know some Black and Brown women who are like, I don't know if this is for me, the clearing, but and we've talked about this. Can you talk about a little bit more about also like the mental health element that will be focused at the conference, the
Mhm.
spiritual element, because it's not just like economic, but it's also like the mental health that also be part of like the discussion that we'll be having on October 7th.
Yes, that's right. In fact, one thing that's really important to understand is that the economic burden that Black and Brown women are holding right now is not only being held in our bank accounts. The tension is not only there; it's also in our bodies. It's in our minds. It's causing depression. It's causing anxiety, and that causes all kinds of medical ailments, hypertension, um, distress in our hearts, and also the breakdown of the systems in our bodies. So, we are going to be talking about mental health resilience in the midst of this as well. In at the clearing in Richmond, get this, Brian's sister is actually a very well known, really awesome psychologist. So she's going to be coming, and she'll also be offering the expertise with regard to psychological coping and resilience. She'll be giving us some tools, some practices, some wisdom with regard to how do we mentally hold the burden, the weight of the burden that we are carrying as Black and Brown women right now. And then on top of that, we will also have the ability to connect with each other and to exercise spiritual resilience. And last but not least, our intention is to connect the people at the clearing with mutual aid, mutual aid resources that they have in their city, so they can be aware of the kinds of mutual aid that are available to them. Many of the women who are coming are not people who have ever experienced poverty before, but have suddenly been thrown into a situation that they may not know how to navigate. So we want to help you to navigate by making the face-to-face introduction with mutual aid resources that are available in cities across the country. We're going to be leveraging what's available in Richmond, but this is many of these resources are also available in your town, in your city.
I love that. I love just like all the elements of like that will be brought into that space, and the discussions that will happen are going to be so powerful. And I'm guessing there's no age limit. If a woman is like 18 and maybe she's like, I don't have anything yet, it's like, please come and learn.
Yeah, 18 to 80. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe even beyond 80 if you can make it in the room. You know what I mean? Like, come one. I'm serious. Come one, come all, because it's
Hmm.
going to be an opportunity for all of us to
Hmm.
share our wisdom and to receive. We will
Hmm.
be in talking circle together. We will
Yes.
be sharing our stories, our economic stories of 2025. We're going to start there, right? We're going to be listening to each other. So when the elders are around the room sharing, we will be receiving wisdom. And when the young people are sharing what's going on with them, the elders will suddenly understand. It'll be intergenerational. This is not meant for any one generation. And I should also just add that this is the goal here is not just a one-off. Our goal is actually to create an ongoing relationship with these cities. We want to be able to come back to Richmond, come back to Philadelphia, go to other cities and come back in order to continue the relationship of bringing resources and helping to sustain communities of mutual care.
I love that. I love that. I love the element of the intergenerational space that will be coming together, and just like the wisdom. If I was 18, I would love to be in a space like that. Just having that wealth of knowledge, but also
Right.
realizing I do have knowledge. I do have something in me. I guess imagine how empowering it will be for the 18-year-olds in the room. Please come. And
Yes.
the older generation, and just like that coming together, and the ones who are in the middle, kind of the midlife, who are still like, I'm not here, I'm not there, but I do see this happening. I love that you shared like the cost and people who would be in the space, and I'm so excited. I'm trying to get like every woman I know, especially the women of color affinity network, just being like, come and be a part of this, and
Yeah.
let's come together, and we're stronger together than we are apart. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's for such a time as this. I know that's quoted a lot, that scripture is quoted a lot, but I feel like it is for a time like this that God is gathering Black and brown women to come together, um, to for us to step into something new, so that 2027 will be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It
There's a way that as Black and Brown women, we have been taught not to center ourselves. We really have. We've been taught to focus outward at our families and our communities. And as a result, we tend to be among the least healthy women and people in the country. We tend to have higher incidence of diabetes and heart disease and all kinds of ailments, depression. And depression looks differently in us than it does in white women. It literally manifests differently. So most of the time, we are not aware even when we are depressed. We just think we're mad, right? But actually, no, there's depression that's happening in there. And just think about just the last 2 weeks, just the last 2 days
yeah, yeah, it's
of
true.
the things that have been coming at us, the people, the grief that we have had to carry, either in our own lives, our own families, or even vicariously by watching the grief of others online.
Yeah.
This is, we were not built for this. This is not what we were created for. And so, um, the one thing, as I have asked, I'll share this with you. I think we're probably going to have to close pretty soon. But when I asked the elders, how did you do it? Because this is not the first time we've been around
Yeah, that's
the
true.
sun, right? This is not our first rodeo as people of color experiencing um, oppression, like straight up in our face oppression, unapologetic oppression. How did you do it? I asked my mom. I asked my auntie. I asked Ruby Sales. Um, I call her Auntie Ruby Sales. Other call her Mama Ruby Sales. She knows my mom from back in the SNCC days, and so that's why I have the privilege of calling her Auntie. But I asked them, How did you do it? And the number one thing that I'm told by my elders is we did it because we had community. We did it together. There's no way that they could have lived through what they lived through if they lived like we live today,
Yeah.
isolated
Mm-hmm.
and also allowing shame, the shame of having things taken away, the shame that is being heaped on our shoulders um, by those who want to denigrate us. They didn't carry that. They set that shame aside and they connected with their communities and they lifted everything together. There was a connectedness that we were created for, that they invested in, that they had. And I'm just aware that in the age of the internet and social media, we're actually more fragmented. Black and brown women are less connected with our communities and therefore more vulnerable for a time like this.
I love
So
that.
clearing is meant to remedy that.
Yes, yes. The coming together of community. Lisa, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I wish we could talk more, but CCDA podcast, we end every episode with the same question. How do you see the principles of Christian community development taking shape in your community today?
Wow. Well, I mean, I see it through the clearing. I have to say, I mean, the clearing is an idea that is, it's an intervention that comes through those principles of, um, relocation is all about proximity. Relocation is about shortening the proximity between us and those who are hurting. And inside of the Black community, um, we don't have to shorten that proximity. We are us. And so what we need to do is shorten the proximity between ourselves. That's what the clearing is meant to do. The redistribution, the whole goal here is to understand that we have been redistributed out of the economy and to then recall our resources to get the wisdom that we do have in our community and have it downloaded back into us so that we can bring those resources back to us. When we think of reconciliation within our communities, from our communities, it becomes more of a reconciliation with self,
Yeah, it's true.
right? So there's a break in the relationship with self that happens through the violence of poverty and impoverishment. There's a break in the relationship with self that happens when you are told that you are no longer wanted or needed and excluded. And so there is a reconciliation with self that is necessary in order for there to be flourishing. And so those three principles are at work in the clearing and also in other things that we do. I think it's all driven by them.
Incredible. Lisa, thank you so much. You're such a fountain of wisdom and integrity. I love your integrity and how you speak and just seeing your journey through your years and how God has led you to this moment in time
Thank
and
you.
your desire to always bring people with you and not just take that just not just for yourself. So I'm excited for the clearing. I'm excited for the women who are going to attend, the intergenerational conversations that will happen, and just what God will do through that movement, not only in Richmond, in Philadelphia, and the rest of the country, and maybe even internationally, because I'm sure it's happening all around the world
Yeah.
with Black and Brown women. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Woody, for listening to the CCDA podcast. And thank you, Lisa, for joining us today. It was such a pleasure talking to you. You want to learn more about CCDA and the clearing, check out the show notes of this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is produced by Sarah Cullen in association with Christina Four. We'll be back soon with another episode featuring CCD practitioners who are committed to seeing people and communities experience God's shalom. We will see you then. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sylvia.